Welcome, everybody, to the fourth edition of the Financial Tangent Podcast. It's a special Easter weekend. Happy Easter, everybody. My name is Rich. This is Chloe and Ben. And
we're gonna jump into debt today. It's a super, it can be a topic of many meanings for everyone, and
we're talking about why it's important to become debt-free. We'd like to talk about how paying off debt is an absolute need in the monthly budget. The minimum monthly payment on debts must be met each month. More is obviously better. The more you pay off your debt, the quicker in life, the better. And living the rest of your life debt-free is, in our view, very important. If you sacrifice we talked about last episode, wants versus needs. And if you make that sacrifice of sacrificing wants today to pay off debt, you'll be in a much better position later in life to spend money on anything that's important to you. You guys agree with that?
The average American carried, I think it was 21,800, according to money.com. Rich.
Wow.
Was that just, can I ask, was that just like credit cards, or was that like
personal debt? So that's going to exclude mortgages.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is as of, let's see, what's the date on this article? This is as of February 7th, 2024. So about a month and a half ago.
Wow.
So relatively fresh data. 43% said they have the lowest or close to the lowest debt they've ever carried. So even think about that, right? Like $21,000 outside of your mortgage. So that, car, education, credit card, that's a little lower than I was thinking, but still, only 43%, right? So, what's that other 57% doing,
Yeah.
Wow. What other statistics do you have there, Ben?
Yeah, it says this is all money.com. The article is called "Here's How Much Debt the Average American Has." We can for sure put the link in the comment section of this video if going on YouTube, and or we can for sure get it to you guys. It says, unsurprisingly, younger generations struggle the most with student loan debt. The Northwestern Mutual study found, which is what this article is referring to, 5% of participants overall said education loans were their top source of debt. That percentage increased
that sounds about right.
to 17% for Gen Z and 10% for millennials. Those with personal debt said on average that 30% of their monthly income goes to paying it off. 30%.
Wow.
That's a lot.
It's a substantial portion. Yeah, that's a substantial portion.
That's like another rent payment.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I would be curious.
Yeah.
The thought popped in my head as you were going through that, Ben. I'm Generation X. I wonder how much student loan debt Generation X still has, and if there's people out there still carrying that debt. And you may not have that, but that's just the thought, that's for another day, but interesting.
Yep. So personal debt kind of broken down by this article. It says credit cards, car loans, medical debt, home ec, and lines of credit. However, that 21,800 was without home equity or credit lines in there. So
sounds like student loans wasn't lumped in there either.
No. Yeah.
So I'd imagine that would be higher.
Debt. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. What else is on your list there,
So
Ben?
just I thought we'd get started kind of with some numbers for you guys. I'm a numbers guy. I know Rich is also a numbers guy. I would infer that Chloe is too.
I think we're all in numbers nerds, aren't we?
Yeah. So
Ben and Chloe, did you guys want to go into debt in this?
Yeah, so I had a couple ideas of certain things that I've heard just online. More specifically, you can't go to school without taking out loans, or Yeah, just basically that line is what I've heard online.
Or
And
I was
that
once told,
you're going to have a loan payment after you graduate from college.
For sure.
you're
sure.
always going to have a car loan. You're always going to have a house payment. Always going to have a car payment. You're always going to have a house payment.
Hmm.
So, and
You know,
that's,
I think something good to kind of maybe visualize this for everyone sometime is maybe we can play with the A equals P times E to the RT equation, right? So that's an equation that basically, shows you compounding interest. And you can manipulate that equation to show you, what your monthly payment will be for something, to either pay off or to save up to a certain amount of money. It's a pretty powerful equation, and honestly, yeah, you see all these, um, advertisements for, vehicles or, um, you know, larger durable goods. Hey, here's what your payment will be. It's only this much a month. It's only that much a month, and so, that's kind of, there's an IO, so off to work I go. And it looks like we've got, and I don't know if this is from Rich or Chloe, so I'm not going to steal either of your thunder. So that was on kind of our outline for the day today. And then
our show
also,
notes, right? The most
yeah,
famous bumper sticker of all, I owe, so off to work I go. That was real
yep.
popular in the 70s and 80s. It sort of tapered off, but I think it's so true today as it
Oh my
was,
gosh, it's totally forgotten about. It's
Right.
totally forgotten about today. So anywho, yeah, kind of circling it into, exactly what Chloe was getting at is you don't necessarily need debt to either, um, achieve some of these things, because it really, I mean, time is money, money is time. So I would say that,
Hmm.
if you're financing your own education, um, for example, I mean, because that's arguably one of the most expensive costs aside from housing that you'll encounter in your life. I mean, how about getting like a part-time little job or something and kind of just balancing it out? Now, I wouldn't go to one extreme and the other extreme. It really boils down to balance. So if school's hard for you, don't overcommit yourself on time, so you can study, but maybe pick up a small little odd job for a few hours a week,
Hmm.
that's flexible or something like that that works with your schedule, but you can also kind of make some spare change. um, and there's also, I think, and Chloe and Rich, feel free to chime in too about maybe opportunities between semesters.
Hmm.
Try to maybe think about, odd jobs that you can do,
Yeah.
kind of during that time.
I don't know how it was at Michigan State, but at Michigan Tech, they really encouraged co-ops. So that's like taking a semester off school and just working in the industry, gaining experience. And of course, there are financial benefits to that too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I think kind of going off the school thing, um, I was reading one of Dave Ramsey's books, oh gosh, what I forget the name of it. It's Total Money Makeover book. That's what it was, where he was talking about if you were, let's say, you eliminate your student loan payments, whether that is like paying it off right away or finding a way to go to school and not having to take out student loans. If you were to take that amount, which was, and he used an example of, I think it's like $1,100, and you were to invest that for 10 or 11 years and literally not touch it after that for like 40 more years, it'd be worth $2 million.
Assuming your returns in the market and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
And so,
So I think there's also some debt myths that you can't go to school without loans. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
right, exactly. That's a huge myth.
if it's all about, opportunity cost, right? I mean, if you know shoot, I mean, maybe you have like physical stuff, right, that you might not use while you're in school, right? So maybe you have, I don't know, like some old, I don't know, like what's a good example? Like, just
You can
old,
do it
just
eBay,
stuff like a garage
garage
sale,
sale. Yeah.
yeah, do a garage sale. That could be for sure. I mean, it might not yield you that much money, but the thought process behind it that I want to get at is this is something that I don't need right now. I can convert that asset into something else that I want, which in this case, if we're talking about education, that's an asset. So, you're kind of converting one asset to another asset, right? And you hear that conversion of assets that people talk about.
Yes, right.
So that's kind of one way to, kind of reduce your loan, if you have to have one.
Yeah.
Or you.
So,
Okay,
so
Paul.
I guess what would we say to those people who have those myths in their mind? Like, you have to have a loan payment, you have to have a car payment, you have to have a house payment. Like, you're always going to have those payments. How would we try to convince people that having debt is not necessarily yields the best financial benefits? Is what I'm trying to get at. Like,
I think it's altering.
Yeah.
The thing that pops into my head is altering the mindset, right? You have this mindset of you need debt. Debt is a necessity in life, and I think you just need to alter that mindset. That's not the case. There's workarounds. You guys are talking about school. Well, heck,
Yeah.
most community colleges nowadays are so affordable. A lot of them offer for grade points, high school grade points high enough, you can go there for free. I think you have to look for ways of finding alternatives to debt. Maybe that means driving an older car, driving for a while, taking a part-time job to pay off your loans, going to a community college your first couple of years. Things along that line. I think people automatically think that the only solution to a problem is going into debt.
Yeah, and I would say having debt causes a lot of financial stress between people and adds a lot of stress to relationships too. So there's a lot of negatives, and I think those need to be considered when you take out debt as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when you think about that, right? The other thing too, I think exactly like Rich was saying, there are so many different opportunities out there, schooling wise. And so,
we could do a whole podcast just on that.
Oh yeah.
I think we will too.
And for sure. The other thing that I think is important too is don't go to school, and we can for sure do this in that episode, but don't go to school until you know what you want to do. You know what I mean? A lot of people get sucked into that pipeline of, I'm graduating from high school, off to college I go. I don't necessarily know what I want to do. I was in that situation, I'll be honest. And I'm thankful that I worked it out and figured it out while I was in school. But, I had a lot of friends that, retook classes, backtracked, and that's time and that's money, right?
Change
So
majors,
especially if you're borrowing the money, it's kind of like you want to go in, get it done, take care of business, and get out. You know what I mean? And
have a clear
especially
path.
if you're borrowing money. You know what I mean? Or even if you're paying for, I mean, that's your skin. You know what I mean? Keep it. Take care of it. You know what I mean? Spend it wisely.
Yeah. I think we'll dedicate a whole podcast to this, but I think that the best advice I ever heard was figure out what you want to do for a career and then get the education that's required for that, if it makes sense. And I think when I was young, you went to college, and if you didn't go to college, you were considered, I'm going to put this in air quotes, you're considered kind of a loser. But I think the trade schools, the skilled trades are so undervalued in this day and age that I would totally consider that if I had to do it all over again. Absolutely.
And I think there's going to be a shift, and it won't necessarily be immediate, but I think we're already seeing that now, where people are kind of waking up to like, I don't have to go to college if that's not what I really want to do.
Right.
And I think Ben and I too, like, we had that push of, like you said, the pipeline of, well, you graduate high school and you go to college and that's just what you do, but that's definitely not the only path.
Right. For sure. Well, and you think about the cost of, like, say, for example, trade school too. I mean, who I can't speak right now on the differences in cost. I can't even speak right now on the differences in, all these different colleges in our state, right? I don't have that data right at my fingertips, but the other thing is, you talk about, cars and house payments too, right? And I also will say too that house payment can really dance along that fine line of want versus need. You know what I mean? So yes, housing is a need, but is your need as you shop turning more into a want? And I'm sure Rich and Chloe understand what I'm saying, and I'm sure we'll have people listening that will, or maybe not, right? And for those that might not, all I'm saying is you look at 10 houses, 5 of them are outside your budget, 2 are below your budget, and 3 are right there, right on par. Well, okay, one of them might be in a great location but needs a ton of work. The other one might have everything is brand new, but it's in a horrible location. So those are 2 extremes. And then the other one is, the other kind of set of variables can be, it's relatively new. It's in an okay location, but it needs a couple more expensive things done to it. But, it's all around a pretty good, solid quality house, or apartment or condo, whatever it is that you're shopping for. But then you also factor in size, right, of the place and what that does to your utilities, your heating, your cooling, your gas bill, your, water, electric, all that stuff, right? So that's we could dive into another episode there. So we're just writing ourselves future episodes here today, I feel like. But what do you guys think about kind of, some of those other debt myths around houses and cars, as well? I mean, I know we just talked on school.
Well, I'll tell you what, before we delve into that, let's talk about friend of the podcast, Bill at Integrity Trailers, www.integritytrailers.com. It's not just our name, it's our reputation. So they give a special shout out to Bill on that. And Chloe, what do you think about that? What would you like to wrap up with debt myths on?
Gosh, I feel bad saying this. I think we kind of covered what.
Yeah, well, let's delve into it.
Let's about this. So
yeah, let's move on to why it's important to eliminate debt and stay out of debt. I mean, we have a whole list of things to talk about as far as eliminating debt and staying out of debt. First of all, is it reduces stress. What Ben? What's your feeling on that?
I think just that sense of, it's not hanging over you. You know what I mean? It's not something that is looming. But I also think too, that, instead of maybe think about like, oh, I'm in debt, or, oh, I have debt, maybe, that's the other thing, right? Is there's the psychology piece, of maybe instead of thinking about, okay, I have a house that costs, say, I don't know, I'll just throw out a number, say it costs $100,000, right? You pay 20 down and you're like, oh, now I owe 80. You know what I'm saying? So instead of maybe thinking about that, like, oh, I owe 80, I need to get that paid off as fast as I can. The other thing that I think is super important is stay focused on the fact that you're making the payments, that you're able to make the payments, right? That's the first step. The second step is okay, I'm living comfortably, but do I have some extra cash to continue paying down on it? And then go, well, I'm paying it off faster than what like my mortgage is on it, if it's a 15 or a 30 or whatever, you know what I mean? And we'll do a whole episode on mortgages too.
But I think you're right, Ben. I think the fact that
understanding
you have a plan,
you're still moving forward, and you have a plan that you can trust. Yeah, exactly, Rich. And so, yes, a good way to reduce the stress is, for me at least, just to look at the numbers and going, I'm on track. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not
Absolutely.
there, but I'm on the way. You know
The
what I
fact that
mean?
you have a plan.
Right, right. That and emergency preparation is kind of our next kind of area. And so doing the emergency preparation will kind of play into the stress reduction piece, because that you have funding set aside for when an emergency comes up so that you can still stay on, your forward financial movement, as I talk about, right? Moving forward financially, right? So your emergency funding will keep you on that forward track. Now, nobody can foresee an emergency, right? So there will be times, and it will happen, where you might only have $1,500 in an emergency fund, and something happens that costs you $2,500. It happens. You know what I mean? That's part of it. But at least you're not $2,500 in the hole, and you had 1,500 ready to go. You know what I mean? So it helped you pay that much faster. It's really, I think more about money as a time piece, and than anything really. I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah, I think my
what do you guys think about stress reduction and emergencies and things like that?
Yeah, I think my thought with that point was more so when you eliminate the debt in your life, you have more room in your budget to plan for an emergency. It's just
Sure.
a little bit easier. And yeah, and that would go into reducing your stress. Like if you know in the back of your mind, I have a plan, I have something set aside in case something happens. I think
Yeah.
that's huge for people.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Rich, what do you think?
Absolutely. For somebody that's debt free and it's been for a while, I could tell you it's a great feeling. So
Yeah.
it's it's nice to know that all they really have to pay in this world are taxes and utilities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some food, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's very it takes a lot of stress off
Definitely.
your life.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And that's
Especially too, like if you have kids, I feel like that's just another thing that you don't have to worry about. And that's huge for a
Right.
lot of people.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Take that extra money and save for college with it. Like
Right.
we had, like we had done.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, has your spending increased being debt free?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole personal budgeting thing that we can talk about. But
Yeah, that's a good point, Ben.
Many they're like, oh, I'm debt free. Woohoo! And then they go out and go bananas, shopping,
Right.
going to restaurants, all that other kind of stuff. And I get it, right? Treat yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Treat yourself, because that's work. That's blood, sweat, equity, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get there. And that's good. You should treat yourself, but doing so responsibly, right?
Right.
But that's a big question that you want to make sure to ask, right? Because I just paid off my car.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought when I did that is okay, are you giving yourself a car payment for the next vehicle that you're going to own? Because it's a depreciable asset, it has a useful life. And when I say depreciable, obviously, it's you buy it for this much, then it's only worth this much, and then but it's more about the more you drive it, right, it continues to reduce in value, right? Yeah. So it has a useful life. And I think a lot of people, especially with big purchases, don't think about the useful life piece. It's so easy to overspend, right? And then next thing you know, you're in debt the next time that you have to purchase that. And then it's just a snowball. So I guess what I get at is in that saving money piece, it's kind of saving your money, and I'll circle it back to the time piece, is you're saving money at the same rate at which you're maybe depreciating an asset or spending, or spending it, you know what I mean? If, asset depreciation, I mean, that's a whole episode that we could get into too. But what are your guys' thoughts on that? Or even where you have interest as a variable on something like that. You know, boat loans for 5%, car loans for 5.5%. You know, what do you guys think about that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so my thought for that was more so like back to the topic of eliminating debt and staying out of debt, why it's important to save up cash because then and pay for something in full because then you're not spending money on interest and you're actually saving yourself money by
Right.
having something saved up.
For sure. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then if you have more room in your budget because you didn't take out debt for maybe the car or the boat or whatever, you have more room in your budget, like we said, for planning for an emergency. So you have your emergency fund. You can maybe do a down payment on a house or put that extra money that you weren't paying off on credit cards, put that towards the mortgage, pay off your house early, save for a car, invest for retirement, college, all those good things that you can now, you have the room in your budget to do with. And that's
Absolutely
a great way to build your wealth and leave a legacy.
Absolutely. You have the extra room in your budget now. You can save for retirement. You know, now you can save your 15% towards retirement. Absolutely. You know,
right.
Yeah, and then you're not so stressed about, oh my gosh, I have retirement I need to save for. I have to save for an emergency fund, but I'm also trying to get out of debt. It's like just if you do it one step at a time, and Dave Ramsey talks about this in his baby steps, but just following the get out of debt, you know, then you can do retirement. But that the important thing is to get out of debt, stay out of debt, so you can do those things that build wealth later on in life.
For sure. And it's incredibly difficult to see in the moment, but as you see the returns over time, that will help. That will help. And it might be, you might start seeing it in 3 years, and that, like if you're talking like a retirement account, you might see that in that short amount of time, and you look at that and you go, my skin that I just worked for just produced me a little bit more on its own. No work by me. I wasn't going in, you know, on a Saturday and a Sunday to make that money. That was produced simply because the funds were there in that account or whatever, right? For your retirement, right? Yeah. That's a whole other topic of conversation too, that we will jump into too, which will be super exciting. You know, and what do you guys think is the best way to build wealth quickly? That's kind of our next kind of area that we wanted to get into, because you see, I mean, I see on Facebook, for example, you know, all these reels, right, about oh, you know, this is how much you make in this job, or oh, this is, you know, if you have an investment property, this is what you make, you know, in that, or you know, buy and sell this, or what do you guys think about, what do you guys think that are authentically good ways to build wealth quickly, but what can also be bad ways, do you guys think? Because I think the bad ways, there are more of them, more people get sucked into them. You know, what do you guys think?
Well, I think once you're debt free, you have that extra income you can invest over time. Absolutely. You know, and
maybe it's not building wealth quickly, but it's the best way to build wealth over time.
Right. There you go. That's the distinction, Chloe. I'm glad you brought that up. So definitely. I think, you know, once you're debt free, you have that extra income, you can invest that. And we'll talk about that next week with, we're going to review Jordan Belfort's book, but he talks about how a really good way to invest money to grow wealth over time.
Yeah, work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think with that freed up, now that you're not paying on debts, or you're not paying all that monthly debt every month, you have that extra income to save and invest. Absolutely.
For sure.
So, that gives you that ability also to build wealth, but also you can spend more on wants. You know, you have a little bit more extra money in your budget now. You can enjoy life a little bit, you know, and sacrificing now for later.
Exactly. Like, you can go on a vacation, whereas like if you're trying to eliminate your debt as quickly as possible, I would say you should hold off on vacations. But then after that, shoot, you have the extra income, save up for it, have fun, sacrifice so that you can have a better life later on.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Treat yourself along the way, right? Yep. But don't, don't too frequently, right? Or else you're not working on your goal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you got? What are some good, setting a good example with money, right? So, now we kind of get into the maybe the family piece of wealth, or, what do you guys think? What do you guys think about that? I have some ideas, but I want to hear yours.
My thought with that was, let's say you're a young child and you see your family struggling with money, and then you see, okay, they've gotten on a budget, they have now a plan on how to pay off debt and build a legacy retirement fund, so on and so forth. I think that is so powerful for a child to see their parents make some type of shift in that way.
Sure.
And talk about money, set good examples with money. I mean, that in itself is setting a legacy for your family, even if you don't have the money to set aside for passing down to generations. I think just having a good handle with money and explaining that to kids, I think that's huge. That's what I meant with that bullet point.
Yeah. Well, and when I look at that, I even, now that I'm like in my 20s as an adult, I can look at some of the behaviors of even, like, say, my family, my parents, my grandparents, or even my siblings, and you care about your family, right? So you're gonna, if you're close with them, right? Not everybody's close to their family. I'm not going to sit here and assume, right? So you may be close to the family, you might not. Everybody's family situation is different. That's not what this podcast is about. But you can identify opportunities where good decisions were made and bad decisions were made, right? So pay attention to, even if it's friends, right? Pay attention to what you do and what your friends do and what your family does, and understand and go, okay, let me learn from somebody else's successes, and you can learn from others' mistakes. Not everybody's going to talk about their mistakes. You're going to hear everybody talk about, oh, we just bought this house, or, oh, we just got this, or, oh, whatever. You're going to hear about that, and that's exciting. Be happy for your, those around you. Be happy for them, and understand that you can accomplish that too. If you stick to, as we were talking earlier, your planning, your emergency preparation, reducing your stress because you know that you're on a forward financial plan, that you've worked to eliminate your debt, and think about where you'll be in the future, instead of it's a balance of right, living in the now, but living in the now for the future. You know what I mean? Don't forget about the future. That's kind of, I guess, what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So, but I think yes, setting a good example with money is a good one too. I've struggled with that. I'll be honest. I'm not perfect. I've said yes to doing things with family or friends that are beyond my means, and that's hard. That's really hard when you have to say, hey, I don't know if I can do that. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can do that today or this week, but maybe I can next month, because either I'm paying off the debt, or I'm making a commitment to my savings that I'm working on, right? Oh, I see somebody sending me some balloons.
Was that you, Chloe? Because I didn't do that.
No, I didn't do that.
Oh, really? Did I bump something on? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, it was perfectly timed.
That was.
So,
but yeah,
that's kind of what I'm getting at,
we never talked about giving. One thing that popped up in my head was also, absolutely, it frees you up. If money's not so tight anymore, you have more money to give, which is also very important.
Help other people too.
Yeah, absolutely. So
pay it
I
forward.
think
Yeah.
we're gonna have to spend some time on that, in future episodes, because I'd like to explore that myself as well. So,
Yeah. And Ben, I want to go back to what you were saying, which is maybe sometimes you've had situations where you've had to turn down doing something with friends. I think that sets a good example too. It's like, hey, that's just not my budget right now. I can't do that. And I think that sets a good tone for other people hearing that. Like maybe they should also stop and think every now and again about what's going
Yeah.
on in their monthly budgets too.
For sure. For sure. For sure.
All right.
alrighty.
Did
So
we
we're
have
gonna
any?
kinda do, I think we're gonna kind of do like a what would you do kind of
Yeah, you
for
have a
this.
situation, right, Chloe? You have somebody that's
I
trying to get out
do.
of debt. Oh, let's talk about
So
that.
for those who don't know, the What Would You Do is a TV show where they have actors that go out in public and they kind of talk about and act about maybe controversial situations, and they just film people and simply what they would do. And so I thought this would be a good for our podcast in terms of we can talk about someone's financial situation. They've posted it on Reddit. And then you or Ben and Rich can go over what they would do in their shoes. So,
All right, let's hear it. Bring it on.
all right. Me, 20 female, and my husband, 22, have about 4 to 5 credit cards that are all maxed out. Also, this is from J-Potter-11 on Reddit. I have student loan payments plus doctor bills that I haven't paid. Our debit card is maxed in the negative. I don't even know what to do. We are both working as much as we can. We have a daughter, 9 months, and at least we are able to keep her fed and happy. But I feel like we will never be financially stable. I have no idea what to do. It is so hard not to spend any money, and I have 2 side jobs that I'm trying to make money on, but it's so slow and we just can't seem to get enough. Once we have money, it's spent before the next week even arrives. Any help or advice will be greatly appreciated, please. Edit. Just addressing several comments. We make about $2,900 combined a month. My husband makes $18 an hour, and I make $263 or $2.63 plus tips because I'm a server. We didn't choose to have this child early. I was on birth control, but somehow a blah blah blah. We got 4 credit cards with a total of $12K in debt. All right. What would
Doing some
you
math
do?
here.
What advice would you offer this lady?
First thing that pops into my head is they've got to get the income up and get the debts paid off. Obviously,
Yeah.
easier said than done. But that was, I think, if they can figure out a way to get the income up, once the income comes up, it solves a lot of problems for them, right? And we don't know. She's a server. I'm sorry. What did she say her husband does?
He makes 18 an hour. There wasn't a career listed there.
If she makes 18 an hour, okay. But she's not working 40 hours a week, right? Obviously there's daycare issues. I'm just doing some quick math. And he does, what's her husband do? Or he doesn't
There
say?
wasn't a career, but it was 18 an hour.
Oh, he makes 18.
Yeah, and she's a service, so she makes $2.63 plus tips.
Plus tips. But if he's making 18 times 18 times 40 times, let's say an average month is 4 weeks, he's bringing home 28.80 before taxes.
Mm-hmm. So maybe she's not working full time as a server because
sure,
they just had a daughter.
Right, they had a daughter, which is cool. I'm just trying to think here because what she needs to do, what they need to do, I don't. Hopefully, they have family in the area where they can get help with watching the baby, and
yeah,
they
Daycare's
need
not cheap.
right, yeah, exactly, right, and so they can work more, and also I think upskill in some way. I think whatever you have to do to prepare for the future of getting a better skill, of making more money.
So that's something that struck me too, is when I read this, there are student loan payments. So I'm wondering if they finished a degree or maybe didn't finish a degree,
Mhm.
and what kind of skills they got from that that could help them make a little bit more money.
Right, absolutely. I totally
Yeah.
agree. I mean, there's factories in the area that you'll make, in the 20s an hour.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even if you didn't want to upskill, you just wanted a factory job, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
My best piece of advice to them would echo what Rich is saying, but when you go to interview, when you go to talk to places, do not stipulate that you really, really need a job there,
Mhm.
because it's kind of the negotiation strategy of pull push. You know what I mean? So if you go and interview and sound as though you have a desperate need, they already know that you want it. They already know that you're gonna be busting down the door if presented an opportunity. You know what I mean? So they'll undercut you on salary. And I've learned this the hard way. And so just fake it till you make it, right? Bury it, talk to your friends for some strategies. Look up
Networking, I think,
WikiHow,
absolutely. Right.
on LinkedIn, network, learn a few strategies, and then go and do a few interviews. Realize that you have a sense of self-worth both for your time and for your energy, right? And that can feel incredibly false and fake, especially if you're in a situation like that. I unfortunately, unfortunately, right, can't relate directly to being in that situation before. However, I can empathize with them in some ways of like, oh my gosh, here I am in this tough financial situation. What do I do? Right. And many get hung up in the numbers. I would say forget about just the total amount, but like Rich said, think about what's coming in. And if you understand and analyze what's coming in, that's kind of the power of numbers, is understand, okay, yeah, it might be X amount in debt, and then yeah, you might have X amount coming in, but the true power of numbers is how long is it going to take, and what's the turn on that number as a result of these payments, right? Yeah. So that's kind of what I would say. I don't know. I don't really know what else I would say or do.
Can they live with family for a little bit until they get,
living
that's another
costs,
option.
Cut your living costs. That would for
absolutely.
sure increase what they could do.
Right. At least in that way, you can pay off the credit card debts, and then you don't have, you know what I mean? And then you can get your head above water, and then you can start planning for your future of, hey, what's a better job out there? What's some better schooling I can take? What's a better skill? Is there a trade school I can go to for 18 months that'll upskill me? Absolutely.
And you listen to Dave Ramsey's episodes every now and then, and so I would say too that I think it's good to be blunt, it's good to be harsh, but you also cut yourself some slack too. You know what I mean? Understand that life happens, and applaud what they're doing. I mean, they're taking care of their daughter, I think. They're taking care of their daughter, and they're prioritizing their daughter too, and I think that's good. However, you don't want to go to the extreme, right? You know what I mean? You don't want to be way overspending on maybe uber expensive clothing that's named that you don't need to be spending. You know what I mean?
The daughter's she's gonna absorb the love, and that's gonna impact her the rest of her life, not the clothing that she wears.
Right.
So I'm hearing
psychology.
Negotiate your salary, basically, Ben, is what you were trying to get at. Is that right?
Yeah.
And also, what I'm hearing, we're being on a budget and sticking to what's important, what needs to get paid, and identifying those needs and wants.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure. For sure.
yeah, and then my mind
What
just
do you
goes
think,
to like how powerful it is, you know, if they're able to clean this up and they do a budget every single month and then they teach their daughter how to do all of these things, how powerful it is for her to grow up and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
no, okay, my parents, like they maybe made some financial mistakes, but they cleaned it up and they've taught me how to do it and we're in a better spot now. I think that's huge
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
kids growing up like that.
Right.
For sure. For sure. You know, and maybe documenting their situation now to
Mhm.
then be able to say, hey, here's where we are now, to teach their daughter when she's older. You know what I mean? Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with both
Yeah.
of you though in terms of advice, like budgeting, try and get the income up, negotiate your salary if you can. Trying to get creative with having family either for daycare or live with family if possible. All that's
Yeah.
really, really good.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then once they do that, they can help save for college, they can do retirement planning. They have so much extra in their budget, you know.
for sure.
Definitely.
And I think
Do it.
too important to think about that, you know, that journey is gradual. Small
Yeah.
steps can produce results too. You know,
Well, it changes the mindset. It gets the momentum going of doing
Yeah,
positive
absolutely.
things and, you know, absolutely. So, and shifting the mindset from being a victim to one that's being proactive and one that's active,
Mhm.
taking an active trajectory in their life of not being a victim, but being one of, hey, I can
Yeah.
change the output of my life trajectory and I have control over this.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Owning the mindset, right?
No, that's a good way to
Yeah.
put it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Every day is a choice.
Right.
Yeah. I like it. That's
Yeah.
good.
So, what do you guys want to touch base for next time? What for everybody watching and listening? Throw some comments in there.
We're gonna
But
talk
Rich and
about
Chloe,
the-
what do you guys want to talk next?
Jordan Belfort's book, The Wolf of Investing. So
Yeah.
prepare for
Kinda
that
get
next
started.
week.
Yeah, like what Ben was saying, if the audience has any ideas, anything they'd like to hear about, shoot a comment over and we'll get to
We'll
it.
definitely talk about it. Absolutely.
Yeah, can dive more into the psychology of both personal budgeting and debt more if there's interest. Otherwise, we can kind of cover our next topic as well. So super appreciate everyone's time for listening, and go ahead and throw us some comments and feedback. I mean, go ahead and share your story with us. You know, what have you done to eliminate your debt? What have you done to begin kind of thinking about, wise financial decisions, being a good example of such. What are some achievements, thoughts, experiences that everybody has to share? It'd be awesome to hear. So go ahead and share. So
Yeah, that's good, Ben.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, you guys. That was great. Hey, a shout out to our 8 subscribers on YouTube. I appreciate it.
woohoo!
Rumble's been very good to us as well. We're also on Spotify. So
Yeah,
like, subscribe, share. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, you guys.
Cool,
Happy
guys.
Easter, everyone.
Yep. Thank you.
Have a great weekend, all.
Yeah, absolutely.